Hey, Centerpoint friends and family, back again here with Bob Perry, our in-house apologist. No, it's great. We've been in a series of conversations around giving evidence to our faith. We've been calling this the Confidence Course, and Bob's been generous enough to lead us as a longtime member here at Centerpoint. And we're in the series of kind of presenting four different arguments for the existence of God. We've gone through the cosmological, the teleological, and now we're addressing some of the moral argument for the existence of God.
Right. This one is a really powerful one because everyone recognizes morality.
Yeah.
Whether you admit it or not, if you have someone who claims they don't believe in objective moral values, steal their iPhone.
Yeah, right.
See what they do.
Yeah.
Nobody actually lives out the idea that morality isn't real.
Yeah.
So the argument is very simple. Again, it's a three-step argument. If God does not exist, then objective moral values don't exist.
Right.
But objective moral values do exist. Therefore, God exists.
Yeah,
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think even the stealing their iPhone thing. Everybody thinks, every culture, every people group thinks that you shouldn't take the other person's stuff.
Right.
And they can form that and present it, but that's just kind of a universal truth.
It is. It's intrinsic. It's built into the fabric of the universe. It's part of who we are. You can't deny it. So. And again, Sean talked about it in his sermon series about this, that we all recognize this moral component of the universe. So what I wanted to kind of focus on is the idea of subjective versus objective. Because some people will try to say, well, there are absolute moral values. And that's tougher to swallow for some people, because then you can say, well, you're have a Jewish family hiding in your basement during World War II in Germany, and the Nazis come to the door. Do you lie to them because that's a moral wrong,
right?
Or do you tell them that they're in the basement? So you end up with these conflicting moral values,
right?
And we're always going to have those,
right?
So I don't like to use the word absolute,
sure,
because while I believe that there are absolute things, it gets sticky with people because then you have to try to justify which one's more important.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea of the moral argument is just that there are moral things at all. That it's the difference between me thinking something is wrong and something actually being wrong in and of itself.
Yeah.
So torturing little babies for fun is wrong. Doesn't matter what you think about it.
Right.
It's wrong. It's an intrinsic moral wrong. So our culture tries to tell us that moral values are subjective, that they're up to us to decide. But when you think about it, that just doesn't work.
No.
If you tried to say that each of us have a different moral value about something, then that just turns into chaos.
Right.
You and I start arguing about which moral values are right and wrong. That's just never going to work.
Right. We have to have some agreed upon framework of how to live.
Right.
Yeah. Operate.
And we all recognize that would turn to chaos.
Right.
So there are very few people who are out there saying, oh, objective or moral value is just up to us to decide.
Right.
What they say, though, is that the culture comes to a consensus. So we kind of have a vote, and where we evolve. Evolution brings us to the point where we all kind of agree on something that is morally right or wrong. But that doesn't work either. Just because you get a bunch of people together to say something is wrong doesn't mean it's actually wrong, or it doesn't mean that you can make something that is wrong right.
Right.
So
correct.
Thank you. And the example you can use, there's a couple examples. Back to Nazi Germany. The German people elected Hitler to office. It was the consensus cultural view that he was a great guy and that this is where they wanted to go. And then we see what they did. So the cultural consensus didn't work there.
Right.
What about in our country in the mid-1800s? In the South, the cultural consensus was that slavery was just fine. So I don't think any of us would agree that the vote is what makes something right or wrong.
Right.
Making something legal or illegal doesn't make something right or wrong. There's something about moral values that's objective. And all I mean by that is it's not up to individuals, it's something objective. It's outside of us that you and I both have to adhere to.
Yeah.
We both recognize it.
One of the things I loved about what Sean said, and I hope I'm not stepping on your toes too.
No.
But, that collective agreement on what is right isn't the determination of the moral law,
right.
Per se, because a lot of times that was motivated, the argument on the other side would be that's argument out of self-preservation anyway.
Right.
But then when you look at some of these self-sacrificial situations, one of the things he mentioned was in recent time, unfortunately, there's been a few school shootings, and in those situations, one of the students stopped the shooter by basically attacking them self-sacrificially. What drove that? That was not a self-preservation thing.
Right.
That was for the other's sake.
Yeah.
And I love that there could be a complete atheist who would do the same kind of thing. I know those people that have something in them that operates on a goodness level. Exactly. They would do the exact same thing in that same situation. What is it? What is in there that drives them to do that good deed?
Exactly. And that's a great point you bring up, because sometimes people who are skeptics or atheists think that we're saying because you don't believe in God, you can't be a moral person.
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying. I'm sure there are atheist people out there who are better moral people than I am.
Yeah.
That's not the point. The point is where does that idea of morality come from?
The logical outworking of that worldview could lead you either to do something good or do something pure evil.
Right.
Yeah. And on the flip side, we know some of the Christian folk who don't live out their faith consistent with Jesus' teachings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not about what we know or how we act. It's about what goodness actually is.
Right.
And the moral argument says that goodness is grounded, is the word philosophers use, grounded in the character of God.
Yeah.
So another thing that people confuse is, how do we know what's right and wrong?
Yeah.
So they'll say, well, we evolved, evolution evolved us to know these things. But it's not about what we know.
Right.
It's about what the essence of good actually is.
Right.
And that's the key point. It's an objective thing that's out there that we all adhere to and align ourselves with.
Yeah. And again, this doesn't necessarily lead us to a biblical God.
Right.
It just leads us to a moral lawgiver.
Right.
Yeah. A God figure.
A moral law requires a moral lawgiver.
Right.
And that's the simplest way to put it.
Great.
It's good.
Awesome. Well, we hope that's helped in the conversation. If you have any questions about these conversations, feel free to email us those questions. We'll be happy to try to engage those and get back to you. But Bob, thanks again for helping us work through these. We got one more argument for the existence of God, and we hope you tune in for that. But until then, we hope you have a great day.